Great ideas don't just appear in a vacuum. Even the most bizarre, out there concepts have to come from somewhere, and when it comes to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they wear their influences proudly on their shells.
Like, what kind of world is this?
Grim, gritty, my kind of place.
When Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird created the Turtles in 1984, they weren't trying to build a multimedia empire, they just wanted to parody the current trends in some of their favorite comic books. 4 of them, to be precise, each one of which contributed key elements to the Turtles mythos. I'm Moose, and these are the comics that inspired the Ninja Turtles. We'll start with, by far the most important, Frank Miller's Daredevil. Stan Lee and Bill Everett's 1964 creation took a while to find his own identity. For decades, he was more or less Spider-Man with a grad school diploma, but when a rising artist named Frank Miller took over the writing duties in 1981, he transformed the character with a gritty film noir aesthetic and oodles of mysticism and martial arts action. Miller's Daredevil helped bring the Japanese mercenaries known as ninjas out of the shadows and into the pop culture spotlight, and the resulting shinobi craze had a huge impact on Eastman and Laird. But the connection goes much deeper than size and shuriken. Their original Turtles comics borrow heavily from Miller's aesthetic, the heavy line work and impossibly filthy rooftops, back alleys, and yes, sewers of 1980s New York City. There are plenty of more overt references too, like how the evil ninja cult called the Hand were reworked into the Foot, and how Matt's grizzled mentor Stick became the more diminutive Splinter. The connection goes deeper than names too, because Daredevil and Donatello share the exact same origin. When Matt Murdock saves a blind man from a speeding truck, a canister of radioactive ooze cracks him right in the face, robbing him of sight but giving him superpowered senses. Now, according to Eastman and Laird, the exact same container bounced into a bowl of tiny turtles, knocked them into the sewer, and mutated them into the heroes in a half shell we all know today. Now, obviously, this extremely unofficial tie-in cannot be considered Marvel canon, but it's a great example of how closely the Turtles are tied to Frank Miller's work, and not just Daredevil. The TMNT also borrowed from another Miller masterpiece called Ronin. Miller's fascination with feudal Japan didn't end with Daredevil. After he left Marvel, he headed across town to the Distinguished Competition, where he released Ronin, a 6-part miniseries about an ancient samurai seemingly resurrected in a cyberpunk New York City. While it didn't have quite the same impact as his Daredevil run, the intense, impressionistic comic book still left its mark on pop culture. Let's put it this way, if you like Samurai Jack, you can thank Ronin and Frank Miller. And if you're a Turtles fan, Ronin played a part in their early development too. Eastman and Laird's original TMNT logo, for example, is lifted straight from Miller's title, and the awesome duels and sword fights are clearly reflected in the Turtles' clashes with the Foot. But beyond that, Ronin might also be responsible for the TMNT's fixation with science fiction. After the somewhat down-to-earth first issue, the original Turtles series takes a sharp turn into sci-fi. And pretty soon they're hopping dimensions, battling anthropomorphic triceratons, and hanging out with fugitive androids in a world that looks a lot like Miller's future dystopia. So, we've pretty much established where the ninja part of the equation comes from, but what about the whole Teenage Mutant deal? Well, that comes from number 3 on our list, the New Mutants. This one's a little more on the nose. Marvel's X-Men weren't the biggest hit when they debuted, but after a reboot in the 70s and a legendary run by Chris Claremont and John Byrne, mutants were all the rage in comics. So, Marvel commissioned a spin-off with a new class of gifted youngsters that were a little closer to Lee and Kirby's original concept. A secret team of teenage mutants who fought evil under the watchful eye of their wise old mentor. Sound familiar? The similarities pretty much end there though. Eastman and Laird just wanted to poke fun at mainstream comics obsession with milking mutants for all they were worth, because they had no intention of bringing their creation to any of the bigger publishers. That's because they had their own independent path to success that was paved by a comic called Cerebus. Dave Sim's 30-year, 300-issue epic is one of the most impressive storytelling feats in the history of comics. What started as a simple parody of Conan the Barbarian as an aardvark evolved into a complex philosophical odyssey packed into dense, phone book-sized volumes. However, I cannot really recommend reading it today, since it also became openly misogynistic, homophobic, and utterly insane as it went on. It didn't start out that way though, and beyond the whole talking animals in serious situations conceit, Cerebus's true influence on the Turtles was on the publishing side. In 1977, Sim decided to produce and release his Aardvark epic all on his own, without any help from the larger comic book companies or distributors. Along with other titles like Wendy and Richard Pini's ElfQuest, the self-publishing revolution transformed the underground comics scene into a true independent industry. Creator-owned indie comics were thriving, and as the collector's market kicked into gear, everyone was looking for the next big thing, and Eastman and Laird had it. With funding from their tax returns and a $1,000 loan from Eastman's uncle, the pair released the first issue of Ninja Turtles under their Mirage Comics label, so named because they had no offices or anything else you'd expect from a real company. But they sold the illusion because they talked a big game. They advertised TMNT #1 in trade magazines and comic book conventions, and they sent a 4-page press kit to 180 different TV and radio stations. Between the artificial buzz, the intriguing concept, and the tantalizingly small print run, buyers immediately snapped up all 3,275 copies of the cheaply printed black and white comic. And when toy licensors came a-calling, the Turtles were transformed into a global phenomenon nearly overnight.
Hey, Michelangelo, what's happening with the turtles?
Well, us Toon Turtles, you know, from the Turtle Cartoon Show, spent the day fighting Shredder in the foot using the Turtle Toon Cycle.
Today, it's easy to think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as cartoon characters, movie stars, and action figures, but before anything else, they were a comic book about other comic books. And Eastman and Laird's obsession with the art form is the true source of turtle power. Thanks for watching, everybody. I still remember when I first discovered the Turtles on the shelf at Toys R Us with that brick background behind the action figure. Now, I want to know, when did you first discover the TMNT? Was it the video games, the first cartoon, the movie, the other cartoons? Leave a comment, let me know, and as always, please subscribe to Now This Nerd.